I'm going to sound a bit off in this video. I'm currently hopped up on meds, getting over mono, and that is why I haven't been posting for the past while. But let's just put all that aside and actually get on to today's video. And today, I'm reviewing the remake of Destroy All Humans, originally released in 2005, developed by Pandemic Studios, with the remake by Black Forest Games. I received a review copy of the game to make this video, so think of that what you will. Also, this is my first time playing the game, so I don't have any of that nostalgia factor going into it, although I did play its sequel. But let's start off this review with graphics. Compared to how the original 2005 release looked, this is a huge step up. Not saying that looks bad now, but it is decidedly cartoony in its appearance, which works really well for this kind of game, except for the look of the humans. Their features are so exaggerated that they look like the aliens. The settings menu leaves a little to be desired, but it is entirely adequate. The main problem that I have with it is the lack of an FPS lock control. The game is locked to 120 FPS, and there is no way that I've found to change that. It's not like it's a big deal, but I would like to increase that to my monitor's native refresh rate of 144 FPS. Saying all that though, with a 2070 Super on max settings, I got an average of 90 FPS, but it often jumped anywhere from 80 to 110 FPS. Turning down the option slightly resulted in a steady 120 FPS, and I think even a dated graphics card could run this game smoothly with the settings turned down a bit.
The private. Cowboy.
Forgive my impertinence, but you are an alien, are you not?
How'd you guess?
I knew it! I knew it! My prayers have been answered! On behalf of all the nations of the Earth, I welcome you to our planet, oh friend from another world.
Gee, thanks. Means a lot.
Enough chit-chat! We need to find Bert Wither. Where is he, pathetic crackpot human? You want Bert Wither? You got him. Follow me.
Typically, I would talk about the music, sound effects, and voice acting as separate categories, but this game is a special circumstance where I should talk about them all together. For those of you that haven't heard about it, this remake uses remasters of all of the original audio. Everything from the music to the gun sounds to the original voice acting is still here, just remastered and remixed for this release. I played through the majority of the game before I found out about this, and I could honestly say that the only thing that sounded reused was the voice acting. The voice acting is really good, but it sounds just a bit off. By today's standards, it sounds dated, like they aren't using the best quality microphones, and I don't know if it's just me, but I can hear a little bit of a crackle, sort of like a white noise whenever somebody speaks. Most of the time, it's covered up by other sounds in the world, but if I listen for it, I can occasionally hear it. As for all the other sounds besides the voices, if you had told me that they had re-recorded them for this game, I would have believed you. That's actually what I thought they did for most of my playthrough. There's absolutely no way to tell that they were originally made 15 years ago. Next, let's go into story, and don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything here. I'm going to keep this section short. All I have to say about the story is that it is full of satire and commentary on America that holds up today as well, if not better than in 2005. Even if you don't end up playing the game, I highly recommend that you watch either a playthrough or at least the cutscene somewhere. As for the gameplay, I don't want to say that it's dated, but they really don't make too many of these semi-open world action-adventure games anymore, and you never see AAA studios make them. The basic gameplay loop is to pick a mission and then complete a series of story-based objectives, then receive a score based on how well you did, and how many secondary objectives you completed. Then you receive DNA that can be used to either upgrade your character or your flying saucer. And speaking of the flying saucer, it has got to be the worst flying controls that I've ever seen in a game. It's like tank controls, but somehow worse. When using a controller, they decided that the left stick would control your ship going forwards, back, and sideways. The right stick controls your ship's elevation and turning. It doesn't sound too complicated when I say it out loud, but it feels like the clunkiest thing that I've ever driven. On the other end of the spectrum, combat is good with a satisfying array of weapons from a disintegrating ray to a nice old-fashioned anal probe. It's kind of surprising that they were actually able to call it that. And it probes so deep that it makes people's heads explode. Your character also has a few alien abilities that he can use, like telepathy and telekinesis. Sadly, the enemy AI isn't exactly the most satisfying thing to use these weapons on. The only thing they know how to do is to swarm and surround. Even worse is it feels like half the missions in the game are stealth missions with instant fail conditions. So most of the time you're just going to be walking around with a body snatching hologram instead of using anything that might be actually enjoyable. I don't want this video to be any longer than it has to be, so I'll move over to my final thoughts. Personally, I would play this game all over again just for the story. The satire and commentary here is something that I would put on par with the Grand Theft Auto series, and I really like experiencing those stories. The gameplay also harkens back to a period of games that I grew up with, so I always have a little bit of a soft spot for these kind of games. But I think that's just a bit of childhood nostalgia creeping in. Let's move on to giving Destroy All Humans a score. If you don't know how my scoring system works, I'll give it a typical number. I give it either a rating of buy, wait for a sale, or don't bother, and Destroy All Humans lands squarely in the buy category. At only $30, this is one of the best remakes that I've seen. Add on top of that the devs using the amazing original voice acting, and you should see why Destroy All Humans currently sits at an overwhelmingly positive rating on Steam. I need to go take some medicine, but before I go, if you like the video, leave a like. Or don't. I'm not your mom. And I'll see you guys in the next one.